Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. We have 5 movies today that I think 2 of these are all-time greats. I think another one is a very well-loved action film. At least in mindset, it's a very well-loved. We got another one I think is an underrated action film, and then we've got
another all-time great.
Another one, yeah, we're going to get to that. There's a lot of thoughts about that. Brian, what are your thoughts on the movies this week?
This was actually a very good week. It's, we got because it was the stinker, absolutely a stinker, but yes. It was fun to watch with you. But again, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Then there were 2 others that I thought, are very good movies I haven't watched in a long time. There are kind of the 2 all-time ones. Which, full disclosure, real life got in the way. I did not rewatch these 2 for this week, but I actually am still going to watch them probably the next week or so but I don't need to. They're memorized. Yeah.
This is one of those rare occasions that we've seen both of these films more times than we could count.
Yeah.
And we could pretty much perform the whole film, which we're about to do right now.
Let's go.
Let's go stripping and streaking into the water, because that tears us right into our first film. Come on, the opening number, the opening scene.
Yeah, I don't want to see us streaking. Yeah.
I mean, we got to give the viewers what they want, so let's just. Anyway, last week our stinker was from my greatest, one of my favorite films of all time. It's basically number 2, and even then, it's like 1A, 1B. This was originally not going to be my pick, because like you and I did with. Couple weeks back with Jurassic Park and Raiders. It's like, look, Raiders is Brian's favorite film. Jurassic Park is my favorite film. We already have talked about them ad nauseum. There's not really much more to talk about. So I did pick another film this week. It wasn't good. Going back and rewatching it, I was like, I don't want this to be my pick anymore. And so we were like, what should I pick? I was like, fuck it. We're just going to go with my original pick. And so my pick this week is my 1B favorite film of all time, a movie that I have seen the second most out of any movies that have ever come out. We're talking about Jaws, baby. Jaws came out July 25th, 1975, had a budget of $7 million, had a weekend opening of $7.06 million, was number 1 its opening weekend. Now, we're unclear on how many weeks it was at number 1 or how long it stayed at number 1, because this is why we don't pick a lot of movies outside of the 80s, because box office statistics are unreliable and all over the place when it comes to
the stats themselves weren't tracked very well. But then the bigger thing is that movies were released very differently. It was like they rolled out across the country. There wasn't like a big release day for everything. And especially with something like Jaws, Jaws is known as kind of the movie that kicked off the modern day blockbuster. So there weren't big event movies like that until Jaws. So yeah, the information's a little unreliable. So
yeah, Jaws had and I think this number is not even correct anymore, but it has a finished box office of $471.4 million, $260.75 million domestic, and $210.65 million international. I think with re-releases and stuff, that number is probably actually a lot higher now. Yeah, what's there to say about Jaws that hasn't been said? The great Dan Murrell posted a video about a year ago on why I love Jaws. And it's a fantastic watch if you guys have never seen it. It's like 21 minutes. And I think for the most part, everything that he said in the video, I 100% back and follow. But a lot of you guys probably maybe not have seen that. So we're just going to talk about
let's roll it.
No. Now, if I wouldn't have gotten in trouble for that, I would just roll that. We would just sit here and just watch it. Like, this is a great point, guys. Listen to this. I'm going to say this. There was a time when I was younger. I think I've told you this, Brian, because you gave me a weird look when I told you this last time. People thought that I was going to grow up to be a serial killer when I was a child, because I'm grown up now. But people thought this because whenever I watched Jaws, I cheered for the shark and I cried when the shark died at the end of the movie. And I still, to this day, defend the shark in this film. I have gotten into so many fights and arguments with people who are like, the shark is the bad guy. The bad guy is the mayor everybody. And I've actually had to trick people into thinking on whether the movie is who's the real bad guy of this film. And it's basically I use basically the plot for Don't Breathe. Crazy enough as it is. To a point. It was like, what if there was this mayor who wanted to throw a big party for the town in this one old dude's mansion. But the old dude's mansion is like, no one can trespass. I will kill anyone who comes on into my house. No one trespass. So, because the mayor wants a big party in the mansion, he sends people into the house to kill the old man so they can hang out in his mansion. Is the mayor trying to bring people into the house to kill the bad guy, or is the guy trying to defend his home the bad guy? When I tell people this story, granted, I'm going very, very quick with it, everyone goes, well, the mayor's the bad guy. Thank you for proving my point. The shark is not the bad guy in Jaws. You just further proved that the shark is the hero of the story. He's just misunderstood. And they all just go, motherfucker. And I'm just like, bam. Long segue short, I love this film. I think this film, I'm glad they've never tried to remaster, or not remaster, but reboot this. Knock on wood, don't ever fucking redo Jaws. Unless you're going to get Spielberg behind it, which even then, Spielberg right now probably will fuck it up. This was the perfect kind of lightning in a bottle. I don't think with the way Bruce the Shark was running, which we talked about in the fourth film, how bad he worked. He worked like crap in the first film too, which is like Brian said last week's episode. Steven Spielberg had to use the imaginative eye to make it scary with you actually not seeing the shark till the third act for the most part. I don't think Spielberg could probably get away with that today. First off, they would have a CGI shark like the Meg, and it would probably look corny as shit. But the acting, Robert Shaw, one of the best monologues in movie history about the USS Indianapolis. I'm still waiting for them to make a big ass film of that. Because I've seen like Discovery Channel do like a little mini movie of that night. I'm surprised they haven't done a big like full scale film about the USS Indianapolis. Have they? Or am I just not meaning? No.
I don't know if one off the top of my head.
Yeah. Jaws, I mean, its tone is brilliant. Its choices of camera, the cinematography, the editing, the sound, the cast. Roy Scheider, I was saying Schneider last week. I apologize. Roy Scheider, fantastic as Brody. Richard Dreyfuss, fantastic as Hooper. Robert Shaw, Hopper, Hooper.
No. Go ahead and finish the thought. I'll tell you after.
Oh, I think you're giving me like, oh, like I've messed up.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Robert Shaw as oh my, see, you made me lose my whole rhythm. Quint, thank you. You messed with me. As Quint, I love Quint. Quint is great, and I love that he's like not even a factor until like the start of the second act, and the chemistry between those three on the boat, and how they hate each other's guts, and they learn to respect and understand one another. I don't think there's really anything wrong with this film. This is, to me, a perfect film, like we talked about with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a couple weeks back. I could talk. Brian, Jaws, go.
Yeah, so Jaws is a movie that I grew up hearing all about all the time, and I caught bits and pieces of it on TV. And I think before I actually saw the movie beginning to end, I had probably seen the entire movie 4 times just in random scenes. So unfortunately, I don't think I ever had that like first experience of watching the movie. I did finally watch. It's probably I was probably 20 years old or something like that before 25 years old before I sat down and watched the movie beginning to end. And it's a classic for a reason. I mean, obviously it's Spielberg doing Spielberg, kind of in his prime, kind of beginning of his prime area. Like you said, the performances are great, especially Robert Shaw, but kind of all the main few characters all do a great job. And what we talked about before, which is that they had to be creative with what they had, and that ended up making the film better because it's not just here, look at the shark through the whole movie. It was like, it creates that sense of dread, and you don't see the whole thing the whole time, and I think it makes the film better for it. I don't love it as much as like you do. Just it's not a personal favorite of mine, but there's not because I think there's any flaws with it or anything. It's just there's other films that hit closer to home for me. I will disagree on one thing. I would agree with you if that Jaws is not the villain, if not for the fact that then his descendants and family make it personal and have to go after.
But that's not the fault of the shark in the first film, though. We can make a whole philosophical debate about this. Yeah, but I will say this. Lorraine Gary is great in this film. She's
fine in the first one. Yeah. To the point where I told him last week, I'm like, I didn't realize it was the same girl in the fourth movie because
she get asked in the first movie.
Because it's such a big swing. I'm like, wait, because I hadn't watched the first Jaws in a while, so I'm like, it's the same one as the first one because what happened to her then?
Yeah, like how did you descend into utter trash and then 3 films later? And I think she's in the second and then the fourth one. She's not in the third one. But I remembered so little about 2 through 4 that until we were getting ready to watch it last week, I didn't even realize it was the same family in all 4 movies because I think I only ever saw Jaws 2 once, however long ago. And Jaws 3, I remembered like Dennis Quaid and the water, the theme park, whatever you call it. But I didn't realize that he was the son. And Jaws is the equivalent of like Michael Myers, where it's the Myers family. Almost everything. There's some connection to Michael, and there's some connection to the Brodies and the Sharks for some weird reason.
But the film's a classic for a reason, and there's so many scenes that not only just are famous scenes, but also scenes have been copied any number of times. Just the whole shark thing, like you said, shark movies come out all the time, and I find myself rooting for the shark in most of those movies.
I was like, I turned my stuff down. I promise.
Pre-show, I muted my phone, and he said, "Because you know how much I hate that when the phone dings." Anyway. Moving on.
Oh, wow. God, I'm not
moving on. I find myself rooting for the shark in most shark movies because it's like, what do you want to see in a shark movie? You want to see the shark kill people. But on a more philosophical level, like you said, the shark's just being a shark. He's not attacking people because he's a serial killer. He's attacking people because he's got to eat.
And at the end of the movie, he gets pissed off. Because that's like, he's just like, all right, mother effers, like, you keep fucking with me? Then fine. I'm going after you now, and I'm going to start chasing you. It's like, that's really the one thing is like, you keep poking at something, it's going to fight back. And that's literally what the shark does. The shark was kind of just going around doing his thing, eating when he wanted to eat, and then they went out on the boat, and they started stabbing it with those barrels and messing with it to the point where the shark's like, enough. I'm taking you guys out because you're pissing me off. I also think that the mayor doesn't get enough recognition for this film.
Because he plays a good asshole.
Oh, it's one of the best asshole douchebag roles.
It's so bad you think William Atherton should have played him. He's the asshole in Die Hard and Ghostbusters and Real Genius and
I don't think when you think of all time just like idiots and like you are the worst, that guy is up there. And he's not in his mindset and everything that he thinks he's doing. He thinks he's doing the right thing. Like, I'm doing this for the town. I'm doing the best for the town. Stuff like this. So in his whole mindset, he's the hero of his own story. It's not like he's trying to be a villain or he's trying to be the bad guy. He's looking out for the town. And, of course, he's looking out for his own ass because if he shuts down the beaches and the town loses money, then he's probably not going to get reelected.
Right. That's all he cares about.
Exactly. And so, I mean, like, his motives, while selfish in a way, are in the best interest of the town. And, I mean, if you look at it, it's like, oh, okay, that's one shark attack. How bad can it really get, And then, of course, naturally, we get Jaws. But, the cast is great. Even I had the song that they were singing. Oh, God, it's out of my head now. I don't want it back in my head. But it's when they're all talking after the USS. They're all singing. I love that. That's such a great moment. There's so much fantastic things about this film. If you guys have never seen Jaws, I mean, if you're a movie fan and you've never seen Jaws, I don't know what to tell you. But granted, there are some all-time classic films I've never seen because they just haven't appealed to me. And maybe Jaws is not one of those films. But this movie is also one of the reasons why, when I've gone to the ocean, I don't go out any further than my knees because I know what's out there. I know what can get you. And the beaches are nice. The beaches are cool and all, but I'm not stupid because as soon as I step into the ocean, I'm in someone else's home and they have every right to come and yank my ass into the water if they want to.
But if you go out there, just make sure you're out there with someone named Brody and the shark will go after them.
Brody or, someone on a raft or, someone who basically is just stupid. Because, all I got to do is outswim the other person. I'll push them in front of the shark. But any last things to say about Jaws?
Nothing about Jaws specifically. The reason I went, earlier, because I could, when you were talking about USS Indianapolis, I was like, I swear I can picture a movie of Indianapolis. There was a movie that came out in 2016, USS Indianapolis Men of Courage, with Nicolas Cage started the movie. And I remember I pictured the cover. It didn't go to theaters. Nicolas Cage didn't hit straight to video phase at this point already. But it had him, Tom Sizemore, Thomas Jane is in it too. I've never seen it. If you want to watch it, it's on Tubi TV. But
with that cast, I kind of want to, but I'm sure it's not good.
Well, it's a bunch of guys that started doing straight to video a lot, and there's probably a reason because it only got released in theaters in like Portugal, Italy, and the Ukraine. So there you go.
And it's called USS Indianapolis?
It's called USS Indianapolis Men of Courage.
I will probably have that pulled up right here.
But you're right. I am surprised they have not made a big budget like main studio film of it.
I mean, it would basically just be open water, but with 1,100 guys instead of just 2 people. But still, yeah. I think there's a film out there if you get the right director and stuff, and you kind of make it kind of like you focus on one of the survivors. You can make a story out of just like Titanic. Right. But yeah, we could talk about Jaws for hours because of just the mastery. You know the word I'm trying to say. I'm not going to say it.
Class in filmmaking.
Thank you.
There you go. But it is available as well as all the Jaws on Peacock.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to. Oh wait, it's another Steven Spielberg motherfucking classic because Spielberg knows how to make movies. He knows how to make stinkers too, but these are not that. We're going to our featured film. This film, in my opinion, is probably one of the best war films I've ever seen. It's probably got one of the best openings in a film, hands down. It's got a fantastic cast. It's got one of those casts that are so large that you are watching it and you're like, oh, I forgot that person was in it. Holy crap. Like, that person's a huge star now, and they were nothing at this time.
Especially watching it now, you're like, that was before they were a star. Yeah,
exactly. This film, in my opinion, wrongfully got screwed out of the Oscar for Best Picture back in the Oscars, which also Jaws, same thing. Spielberg not getting nominated for Best Director is a crime for Jaws. But we're not talking about Jaws anymore. We're talking about our featured film, which is the war epic Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan came out July 24th, 1998, had a budget of $70 million, had a weekend opening of $30.57 million, was number one its opening weekend, spent 4 weeks at number one, had a finished box office of $482.34 million, $217 million domestic, $265.34 million international. And I'm sorry, all those numbers would have ballooned if it was made today. $70 million for this film, that's how much they made it for. It would have been at least a $200 million film if it was made today. Like, easily. But Saving Private Ryan, I mean, I think everyone, for the most part, and I even asked Brian, he agreed with me, I think everyone first thinks about the first 20 minutes on Omaha Beach. That scene, I mean, didn't they almost get like an NC-17 rating just from that scene alone because of how graphic it was?
I don't think so. I think if anybody else made the film, it may have. But Steven Spielberg has a certain pull with. I mean, he's actually one of the guys who went to the MPAA and created the PG-13 rating. And so, I mean, he's one of those kind of guys who has like a lot of pull with them. And I think it's the kind of thing where, you put in the historical and cultural context of it. It's not graphic violence for graphic violence's sake. So, I mean, I don't think it was ever in danger of getting NC-17. But if anybody else made this movie, you have Roland Emmerich or Michael Bay or something like that make this movie and have that same opening scene, I think you might pull it out. I think you might have to cut it.
Eli Roth. Could you imagine what Eli Roth would have done with this?
Oh, let's not think about that.
Well, he's not Uwe Boll, but still, like he would have had like just the gore of it all would have been too far. But yeah, the first 20 minutes is once again a masterclass in filmmaking. The way it's shot, it makes you feel like you're on the beach. The epic craziness that's happening basically for the most part through the eyes of Tom Hanks. I one of my favorite moments of the film, and they do it again near the end, is when he gets right near a big blast and you hear the ringing, and he's just caught in the dead of silence, watching just
which has been copied so many times since then in movies.
Yeah, since then, yeah. Like there's the one part I think he looks over and he sees the one guy just walking around like looking for his arm, and he just finds it, and he's still just walking around, like the horror of that scene. And then we get into the actual meat of the story where him and his men have to go and find this one guy because it's his four or five brothers. I think it's four.
I think there were three brothers that died.
Okay.
I think. And then there was him, and then he had, I could be wrong, kind of.
But it doesn't matter. Pretty much all of his brothers died. And so basically the military decided we need to send at least one home safely. And so they have to go on the mission to try and find Private Ryan, played by, I would say, was Matt Damon really big then? Or had he only done like Goodwill and like Talented Mr. Ripley and stuff?
He had made a couple movies. He had made those. He had been in, I think, Rounders came out the same year as this or the year before. So he was a name, a recognizable name, but he wasn't like a star. But mostly from Good Will Hunting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the cast is whereas with Jaws the cast was fantastic in a small capacity. This is a fantastic cast of epic proportions with just the mass of people. I mean, going down the road, you got Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, you've got Tom Sizemore, probably my favorite Tom Sizemore role. I think this is his best one he's ever done. Edward Burns, you've got Adam Goldberg, you've got Vin Diesel, and when I think no one knew who the hell Vin Diesel was, and this was before family. He was just kind of just army guy number 4 in the group kind of thing.
No one did know who he was at this point because basically Spielberg kind of handpicked him out of scene because he used to make his own small like short films, and Spielberg basically handpicked him from that.
You sure it wasn't because of Street Sharks? I mean, I don't
know. It's with breakdancing videos.
Yeah, it was the breakdancing videos. And that's the thing too, is like Vin Diesel at the time, he was not a big actor. He was not well known in any means. But even his final scene is memorable and respectful. And like he's like, hey, like this is a nobody character, and this is a nobody actor. Oh, we can just kill them off screen. Don't give them anything real big. And Spielberg even was like, no, we're giving this guy his moment, kind of thing. Giovanni Ribisi. What's the other guy? Little Bitch.
Little Bitch. Squeak Scolari. I don't know. Jeremy Davies.
Little Bitch. What's that?
Jeremy Davies was a little bit.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy Davies. Which to me still one of the like Omaha Beach is a horrifying 20 minutes, but the scene with Adam Goldberg fighting the German with Davies sitting out on the stairs, frozen in fear of helping, and then what unfolds in that scene to me is one of those scenes that has been locked in my brain as to me just one of the most horrifying scenes to like just sit through and experience. Which I think even for you, I was like, Brian, what's the 3 things that you remember for Saving Private Ryan? I think you said that scene also was in your top 3. Was it not?
Yeah, I think the 3 scenes that jump to mind first when I think of this movie are the opening, of course.
Yeah.
The scene you're talking about, and the other one that gets me is when they find the wrong Private Ryan. Not just because
anyway, but now we're at it.
not just because it's Nathan Fillion, but just the way that scene is done, where they come to him and like, what? How can my brother be dead? He's in grade school or whatever he says, and they're like, what? Get the wrong guy. Fuck this guy. I just love the way that scene is done. It's like even though it's a very serious moment, it's also got a little bit of humor to it. I like the way that's done. I think it's handled very well. But yeah, the scene you were talking about is definitely one of those that you remember, and it's because of the way that scene itself is done and the drama of the scene, but also the way that it's the culmination of the fact that he let this guy go earlier on, and basically this guy's death is his fault and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of all comes around.
Oh yeah, it's a full character arc for Davies' character. I like speaking of another scene that was used comically, but then was a lot more intense or dramatic is the one scene where they're looking through all the dog tags of the dead and they're treating it like it's poker and they're just having fun. And then they were just like, and you're watching all these other guys who are just walking by listening to this. And finally it was
like, look at all the people that have died and you're going off into battle, you know?
Exactly. And some of those might be your friends and stuff like that. And they're over here just laughing about, oh, I got a Johnson here. Oh, I got a Johnson too. And it's like, because I mean, these guys, they're pissed off that they're on this journey, and they're just kind of trying to find ways to decompress from it.
Yeah, but when you see Tom Hanks like bust in and stop him, it's well done.
Yeah, Tom Hanks, also Barry Pepper. I love Barry. Barry Pepper does not.
I love him in this movie, the sniper.
Barry Pepper's great in everything. I love Barry Pepper. I think the last thing I saw him in was Crawl.
You haven't seen Battlefield Earth?
I have seen Battlefield Earth, but he's not the worst part of that movie. So. Not blaming Battlefield Earth on Barry Pepper. It's Travolta. Let's be real here. And the camera tilt. But it's one of those things. There's so much just amazingness of this film. The final battle, how they had to resort to not having a lot of ammo and stuff, so they had to kind of do the whole like sock bomb thing. And just my moment, like I said, top 3 moments. Mine was the one scene, the opener, and then it was the scene with Hank shooting at the tank at the end. You know, showing that like he's not going, like wasn't he a school teacher? He's a school teacher, right? Yeah, he's a school teacher, but he is just like I'm gonna go down to the final moment, and then just the inevitable what happens in that moment. There's. Like I know we're walking around this film. The film is 23 years old, but it's just such a fantastic film that you don't want to just straight up spoil shit. Same thing with Jaws, but I mean, Saving Private Ryan and Jaws are 2 of Spielberg's best films, along with Jurassic Park. But yeah, anything else you would like to add for Saving Private Ryan?
No, I mean, you actually covered most of it, but I think the 3 things that get most about this movie. One, like you said, that opening scene, which it really puts you in the middle of the battle. And for me, I remember seeing that in theaters, opening night, and myself and all these other people, a lot of them, younger people my age at the time. And it up until that point, you always hear about, the storming of Normandy and these wars and how many people died and things, but it's just numbers, just facts. And I think even though it is fictionalized, it's a movie version of it. It's the first time you sit there and realize what it felt like to be on that beach. Mm-hmm. And especially at the end of the movie, we're all kind of sitting there like, we actually sat there like at the end of the movie going, wow, that was intense. It's like, you can't believe, what these people went through, and how you wonder how you would react in the situation. Would you be able to be as brave when it's like, what you're up against and how futile it is?
I don't think there really has been a movie, I would say maybe since then, because I remember like when that movie came out, everyone was like, be prepared for that first 20 minutes. It is going to be very rough to get through the first 20 minutes. That first 20 minutes is like, there was warnings about the first 20 minutes for people that, you might not be able to make it through it. You might have to, kind of pull yourself out of it. I don't think there's been a movie since that has been like, you guys need to be warned about this scene. Or this sequence.
Well, and I think that's because of Steven Spielberg, because I think if anyone else tries to make this movie, it seems sensational, like a Michael Bay kind of thing, like a war movie he makes. When it might be a well-made movie, might be an entertaining movie, but it's not going to be as it's not going to handle it in such a classy way like Spielberg did. And like you said, even the parts that are the guy walking around looking for his arm, there's a guy like basically trying to hold his guts inside, things like this. And they weren't done for graphic shock value or anything like that. And from what I understand, every one of those moments, even like the guy walking around looking for his arm, was based on what stories that were told to Spielberg and his screenwriter from people who were there. Like, these are things I saw. So they wanted to put those things in there so you could see what it was like to be there. And so I really think that it took somebody like Spielberg who could handle it with the right touch, where it's you're able to show what it's like, but without seeming sensationalistic about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Saving Private Ryan, like I said, it's one of those films that just needs to be experienced. So if you're not a big war person, I mean, the cast alone should draw you
That's
in.
the other thing I was going to say, and again, you already kind of covered it, but I mean, the cast from top to bottom, you covered all the stars of it, and then like you said,
I forgot about Cranston. Cranston's got a scene.
There's people that show up you didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston was in there. You know, you mentioned Nathan Fillion, Paul Giamatti, one of his very early roles. That I didn't even know who he was at the time. Actually, he's in a film we're going to talk about next week as well. He had a great July of '98 apparently, or August '98. Because I think the next film from next week is the first time where I kind of really noticed who he was, and then I'm like, oh yeah, he was in that movie before too. So, there's a whole lot of great people in this movie.
There's so many people in this film. Saving Private Ryan, is it on anything currently?
Saving Private Ryan is currently not free anywhere. It's on AMC Plus, Showtime, things like that. But
it's weird. For some reason, I thought it would be on HBO Max. But yeah, anyway, we are moving on to Brian's pick. This is one of those films that I think just kind of came out, and I don't think anyone was really kind of giving it really any kind of look outside of like, oh, it's, you know, this actress's film. But then after the movie came out, there was word of mouth going, guys, this is actually really good, and kind of got it like kind of like this. I wouldn't say it's a cult following, but it was one of those where it's like, this movie's incredibly underrated. You should check out this action film. I only saw it the one time. I liked it. So when Brian picked this one, I was like, you know what? Good. I haven't seen this movie since 2010. I should probably check this out again. And we are talking about the Angelina Jolie spy action film, Salt. Salt came out July 23rd, 2010, had a budget of $110 million, had a weekend opening of $36 million. Number two, its opening weekend behind Inception in its second week. It had a finished box office of $293.5 million, $118.3 million domestic, and $175.19 million international. So yeah, Salt. Brian, why don't you kick off Salt?
Sorry, can you see me okay?
Probably bad. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, sorry, my screen was freezing up on me. Okay,
No,
sorry.
you're good.
You're not going to cut that out, are you?
No, I'm
Okay.
not.
Sorry, folks, technical difficulties.
Well, I mean, in your defense, you've had internet issues like the last, I think three.
I have, so I want to make sure you didn't talk for 10 minutes, then find out you didn't hear anything I said.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So yeah, I mean, Salsa ones went down. Now this came out like, okay, so Angelina Jolie obviously had been around for a while at this point. I mean, I first recognized her from, a lot of people saw Girl Interrupted, things like that. I remember Hackers. It's the first one I remember from her. But she's made a lot of movies since then. 2005 is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think it's a great action film, a great action comedy.
That might pop up on the show, if I'm not mistaken.
I hope it does.
I guarantee. I think we will be talking.
If it falls in the right time, which it would have been June, so it must not have. Because I guarantee you, I would have picked it.
I think it might have. We just didn't pick it.
I don't think I would have let that happen.
We'll look it up after the show.
Unless it came out the same week as something I really, really liked, I wouldn't have let that happen. Because I love Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and obviously she does a lot of great action in that too. Both the gunplay and with martial arts and everything kind of.
Yeah.
And she's known for Tomb Raider already at this point, I think, stuff like that. So Salt came out. I'm like, oh, another Angelina Jolie action movie. This will be pretty good. And I also tend to love kind of spy thrillers. What I loved about this one, it was very unique. In that your hero, or at least your protagonist in the movie, Evelyn Salt, played by Angelina Jolie, starts out, she's basically a CIA officer or CIA operative of some kind. But then they bring in this guy. This guy shows up at there to defect, I guess. I don't know what his motivations were.
He's defecting.
Yeah, he shows up and they're interviewing him, and he basically calls her out as being a Russian spy that he knows. And so, the whole thing ensues where she escapes and they start chasing her, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Is she actually a spy? Because she's denying it at first. But then as the film goes on, I'm not going to go into great detail, but this is all in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything, is that, basically they're chasing her down and she is acting like she must really be a Russian spy. And the whole film kind of keeps you guessing. It's like, is she or isn't she a Russian spy? And like, okay, well, I guess she is, but wait, where do her loyalties lie? Things like that. Mm-hmm. And really, right up till the very ending scenes, you're still not quite sure, but you're still kind of rooting for her. I mean, there are things that happen in the movie where you're like, well, okay, obviously she is a bad guy, but then maybe she isn't. And I can't really say too much without giving stuff away.
Well, it's one of those things too, where depending on which version of the film you watch, really kind of either lets you linger in that mindset of, is she really bad, and you just don't know, or because like I said, you made me watch the extended cut.
There's an extended edition which is actually extended. It's only a minute longer, but it does have several scenes that are swapped out.
Yeah,
like it has like basically an alternate ending, which it doesn't greatly change like everything came forward. It's not like Clue where the ending changes. It doesn't change who the killer of the movie is or anything, but it's a little bit more definitive as opposed to leaving you kind of unsure. It's a little more definitive in the ending.
There's one scene in the middle or end of the middle part of the film that they leave towards near the end of the extended cut to basically kind of keep you in the dark on what Angelina Jolie's character is doing. But I don't know if I necessarily like that version. I actually think I like the theatrical.
Well, you know what it is? I think that the version at least theatrically seemed like it wanted to have a more open ending. Like they were going to try and make
they wanted to make a series out of it.
They wanted to make a Salta franchise, like a Bourne Identity kind of thing, which I actually would have been open to at least one.
Yeah, I would have been out
because I liked the character. I thought Angelina Jolie did a great job. I think she does a great job here playing this spy, but it's grounded. It's not like she's like this super spy. She's somebody. She gets her ass kicked repeatedly through this movie. She's taking hits, but she's very smart. She's able to like use her knowledge to get out of situations. And I think
was it the interrogation room where she uses like the fire extinguisher? Like that was a great scene. Great scene.
Yeah. But and then you have to of course look at the supporting cast, which is just full of people we love here. It's got Liev Schreiber, who is always good. He's one of those guys. He's been in bad movies, but he's always good in them.
He's always
before, a favorite of mine. Basically playing the operative from Serenity, because he's a guy who's basically his job is to catch this person and bring them in. And it's like, well, what if they're innocent? What if they're not bad? He's like, I don't care. That's not my job to decide that. My job is to catch them. It's somebody else's job to decide if she's guilty or not, kind of thing.
You know what? I never looked at this as him being the operative from Serenity, but now that you mention it, like, you're not wrong. Except
think about this. He's doing exactly the same role, and even kind of at the end
in this film than in Serenity. To me, Serenity. That's the first time I ever saw Chiwetel Ejiofor, and that's still one of my favorite performances of his. I love him in Serenity.
Serenity is definitely the first time I really recognized or paid attention to him. He'd been in things, I think, you'd probably seen him before then too, because he'd been like Amistad and some things like this. But that was the first time I think you saw him and really noticed him.
Yeah, that was the first one I was like, I like this guy.
But he does a great job in here. There's most of the rest of the cast is not big stars. I mean, there's people that you'll recognize. Like, hey, I've seen that guy in movies before. But those are kind of the big three. The director, Philip Noyce, he's done a lot of thrillers like this. The one thing I most remember, he did Patriot Games, the second of the Jack Ryan movies. And it kind of had that same feel to it. Just in terms of the kind of the tone of the movie and the kind of political thriller thing going on. Yeah, I'm sorry. I babbled for a while. What are your thoughts on that?
No. You're like kind of how I did with Jaws. You're hitting all the points. I think it's one of those things where with Salt, and I think maybe this is why people maybe didn't give it a shot right away, is because it kind of, outside of like the Brad Pitt aspect of it, it was kind of hitting a lot of the beats of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but just more of kind of the drama version than where like Mr. and Mrs. Smith was kind of more like, this is going to be fun kind of deal. And like me, I think Angelina Jolie, I think the first time I really noticed her was probably Bone Collector, or
also Philip Noyce
and Taking Lives, and probably Gone in 60 Seconds. Those, because I didn't see Girl Interrupted or Hackers or anything prior to that.
Have you seen Hackers since then?
I've never seen Hackers.
Oh, is that possible?
I've never seen Girl Interrupted either. Or was it Gia? I think it's one other big movie that she was really
Gia. Well, Gia was a made-for-cable movie, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, she got well noticed for that. And I agree with you. Liev Schreiber is great. He's the only good part of X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Anyway,
we're not. Yeah, but and he's great in the screams. But yeah, and then of course Chiwetel. You and I are both on the same page with Chiwetel. This film is like I agree. It's very grounded, kind of Bourne-esque. When she gets to be a badass, she wears the badass persona very, very well. But it's grounded in the fact that she is not this perfect spy like an Ethan Hunt or something like that. Like literally the movie starts with her captured being tortured because she got caught. And then she basically just kind of has to find ways to get out of it, which even in that one, she didn't get out of it. They literally traded her for somebody else to just kind of ground the film in, yeah, she's not like an Ethan Hunt or Xander Cage where she's going to get out of every situation. It's like, no, she can get caught. She can be beaten kind of thing. And then, like I said, I prefer the theatrical cut over the extended. I think the theatrical has a better ending than the extended, even though they kind of are doing the same thing. I think I maybe like the execution of what they did with the extended cut.
I feel like the extended cut was
the placement of it.
I think the extended cut felt like more of a not necessarily an alternate version of the movie so much as like, hey, here's an ending we thought about using, almost like a special feature. I feel like
I took it as more as like, okay, we thought we were going to get more films out of this, so this was the actual version. And then we realized, oh, we're not making any more. Here's the extended cut, which is kind of more of a finality, kind of an ending. But yeah, I prefer the theatrical personally. But yeah, I think Salt is one of those films. It's like I say, it's one of those things where yes, we had the Bournes, and this just basically looked like female Bourne.
I'll take this over Bournes any day. Actually, the Bournes kind of bore me.
I agree. I like Salt, and like I say, even with like say Schreiber and Chiwetel, I think it's a very, very solid action film. It's not going to be one of those that I go back and revisit over and over and over again.
No.
But I think is a very solid film that maybe probably a lot of people did not see because it felt a little too similar to Bourne or Angelina Jolie. Like some people just don't like watching her films, but I think she does a great job in the film. But yeah. And I don't think Salt is on anything, right?
Actually, it's on both Crackle and Plex, which are both the sites that you can use. They're the kinds that you can watch free with ads.
Gotcha. Anything else for Salt before we move on?
Nope, that's all I got for that.
All right. We're moving on to our revisited film. It is a beloved action film of the 90s with a quote that has been used way too many times by a lot of people. And don't worry, I will say it at some point in this talk. But we are talking about the Harrison Ford action film Air Force One. Air Force One came out July 25th, 1997, had a budget of $85 million, had a weekend opening of $37 million. Number one, its opening weekend, spent 2 weeks at the number one spot. It had a finished box office of $315 million, $172.95 million domestic, and $142 million international. One thing that sticks out to me here, I said this to you the other night. This movie was a year before Saving Private Ryan, and it spends most of the film on the plane, and it was $15 million more to make than Saving Private Ryan. That baffles me.
Especially when you see the effects that came up with.
And the cast. But yes, this is the Harrison Ford as a president movie. Obviously the iconic "get off my plane" kind of thing. Gary Oldman being the Gary Oldman best that Gary Oldman can be as a villain, cheesing it up, doing the whole like Russian accent. You got some great like small roles in here. You got William H. Macy. You've got oh God, I'm not gonna be able to find this one guy's name. Every movie,
Xander Berkeley.
What?
Xander Berkeley.
No, well, I was gonna get to Xander Berkeley. There's one particular guy. He's a guy that I noticed, and everything I've ever seen him, he always plays a Secret Service agent, and he was also on 24. He's a nobody. He gets killed like that. But like I was like, oh, what's his name? And I was like, oh shit, he died like super quick. But Glenn Close is
Glenn Morshower. I saw his name. Yes, that's him.
Yes.
The redhead guy.
Yeah, the redhead guy.
I know him from 24. Yeah,
he dies like one of the in like right when the first initial thing he gets a few shots in. And I was just like, is that the guy from 24? I was like, it totally is. And then he died.
He always plays a Secret Service guy, I swear. Yeah,
and he always is a Secret Service guy, and he's always like a really good actor at playing that. But this was like probably like when he first started out because he dies right away. But yeah, this is like say it's Air Force One. Russian terrorists take over the plane, and Harrison Ford is the president. But of course, naturally he's former military, and he has to take it back. Brian, I think you probably have more to talk about when it comes to Air Force One than I do. So why don't you take it away?
Well, first of all, first thing I think of when I hear Air Force One is people used to give me so much shit at the time this movie came out. I looked just like Gary Oldman in this movie. It's like it was very strange. I had the same kind of goatee and the same hair, and it was
okay. So
really
you're not talking about right now. You're talking about back then.
No. At the time this movie came out, I looked like he did in this movie.
I will admit I've been in that same boat. I've gotten Elijah Wood when like The Faculty came out, and I've gotten Gary Sinise from like.
Yeah,
I'm not Forrest Gump, but I'm just like, I do not really.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying I'm a lookalike of Gary Oldman or anything, but at the time this movie came out, it was I saw the similarities, especially just in the way my hair and stuff look, and so I got a lot of shit for it. That's the first thing I think of. But Gary Oldman, obviously, as always, does a great job. This is one of those movies. There are movies where he's just a great actor, and there's movies where he just sinks his teeth into the roles, usually as a villain, of course.
And that's usually when he always does sink his teeth into the roles, is when he's the villain.
Yeah, I mean, the Professional, of course, being the greatest one. True Romance, I love him in his small role as Drexel in that one.
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element. This one is a little bit more straightforward. It's not over the top, but you can tell he's but he really sinks his teeth into this role. Harrison Ford, especially early in the movie, I thought, I remember thinking this is one of those. Harrison Ford's kind of sleepwalking through the role. Harrison Ford had this period like post Fugitive, where he was in danger of becoming like Bruce Willis is now, where he's like, whatever, I'll take a paycheck, I'll just show up and do my thing. And so like halfway through this movie, he's still just kind of doing his gruff Harrison Ford thing. And you're like, okay, fine. I buy him as a president who takes action. It works. If there's going to be a president who's going to do that, Harrison Ford could be that guy. Absolutely.
I mean, we got that with Bill Pullman in Independence Day like the year prior.
Yeah. But Bill Pullman, I couldn't see like getting in fistfights and stuff,
Fighter pilot.
Yeah. But so I bought Harrison Ford in this role. But this is one of those movies, like, I don't think it's going to top anybody's like favorite action movies of the 90s things, but it's one of those just like it's not one of the first ones that pops in your head, but it's a solid 90s action film. And while it is just kind of, it could very well just kind of be generic action film number 28, by the end of this movie, I'm cheering along and I'm getting excited for it and everything like that. Of course, there is the fact that, as you and I discussed, this movie takes a while to end. I think at one point we're like, oh, it's wrapping up? Oh, good, because I got to go to work soon. Oh, wait, there's still 35 minutes of the movie left.
When you eliminate the bad guy, and not just the bad guy, but the main bad guy, that the whole reason why they're doing things, like when you eliminate those guys, you're like, oh, okay, cool, we're wrapping it up here. We probably got maybe 10 minutes to go. And it's like, oh, no, here's a whole nother act of a thing. They're like, wow, they didn't plan this properly, did they?
Yeah, and they maybe should have ended it.
You still have that one bad guy still there that no one knows is a bad guy, which then I felt like the movie forgot about. And it's like they tacked it on at the end. But
what really doesn't make sense to me is like, okay, he was obviously or at least in with the bad guys.
They never explain it, do they?
They never really fully explain it. But it's like there comes a point where it's like he can get away with it scot-free. But
absolutely.
Because nobody else knows what the hell's going on. Nobody else knows he's involved, but he's still kind of acting all like he's going to try and help out the bad guys. You're like, why would you do that? Everyone else is dead. You can get away with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end, it becomes just self-preservation. But still, you get to see him have the comeuppance and things like that.
Self-preservation because all the rest of the Secret Service agents were going to get off the plane, right?
Well, no, because they only had time to get one last person off the plane.
Yeah, it was going to be me. Okay, yeah, because part of me, I was just like, why did you give it away?
Because I honestly I couldn't remember going into this. It's been a while since I watched it. I'm like, I was thinking, why was he giving himself away? He's going to get away with it. Nobody's going to. And then I realized, and then they say, oh, we only have time for one last trip. It's got to be you, Mr. President. And I'm like, oh, that's why he does it, because he wants to.
Yeah, that was one of those things too. And then like the effects of it.
And then there's the plane crash. So this movie had this budget, which I don't remember the numbers, you do, but. And most of the time, I mean, there's other scenes in the movie where you see the fighter jets now, which they're fine, especially by late 90s standards. They were decently done. But that plane crash, oh my God, it looks like something that some kid made on his home computer where he just took a picture of a plane and like did cartwheels with it. And it's bad. It's bad.
There are two scenes in this movie that one that I feel near and dear to my heart. And then there's one that is not a ploy, but it's a plot base that every president movie has that I'm just so sick and tired of. First one is when he gets on the plane and he's trying not to find out the football score. And he's like, no one tell me, no one tell me, no one tell me. And he gets all the way to the point where he's about ready to get set down. And then the one guy goes, great game, huh? Score. Like, that dude's fired, first off. Like, I'm firing that guy, or he's going to
go, get off my plane.
You're going to Alaska. You've been, because I don't know how many times it's been where I would have to work during like a Cowboy game or something. And people come and going, man, the score. I'm like, no. Like, shut up. Like, I'm going to make it home without knowing the score. And then I walk into the door, or, like, I turn on the radio or whatever. It's like, Dallas Cowboys score. I'm like, I was so close. That was so close. I felt his pain in that moment. Yeah. It's so heartbreaking. But the one thing that I kind of – and this one, I would say in terms of the way they do this, it's not as bad as other films. But I am so – the cliche of the one guy in the cabinet that's just always like the dick, always trying to undermine the president situation. Like every political, like whether it's a drama or a comedy or an action film, anything that has to do with the president, why does there always have to be this one guy who's trying to take charge and be overthrown? And by the end of the movie, he gets fired, or he gets his comeuppance, or he gets proven wrong. I'm so tired of this ploy. It's so annoying. And this one was just kind of like unnecessary. Like, well, at first he was like, "Oh, I'm in charge." Nope, you're not in charge. And then once he finds out he's not in charge, he's like, "Well, I'm still gonna try to like make sure that the president's not in charge anymore." It's like, why? Why? You're not. It's an unnecessary characteristic of these films, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, it's Dean Stockwell, who anybody who watches Quantum Leap knows as Al.
I mean, same thing with like Dave with wasn't it crap? Who was it in Dave?
Well, Frank Langella, he wanted to be president, basically.
Yeah, Frank Langella. Yeah, there's always just like this one guy.
Yeah. Now in this one, I feel like, okay, so. In this one, it wasn't a guy who was making a power grab for himself or anything like that. It was just a guy.
He wanted to be in charge.
Huh?
He wanted to be in charge.
Well, no, because even if he got everybody to sign up,
I'm in charge, and just goes like, "No, I am." And then that one guy came in saying, "No, she is." And then at that point, well, fine, I'm going to make sure she stays in charge. And it's just like, God, get the fuck out of here.
Well, that was the thing, though. At the point he says, it wouldn't be you, it would be her because the president's, incapacitated or whatever. But then he still is the one who goes around and tries to get cabinet signatures to make her be acting president. So I figured at that point it wasn't so much him making a power grab for himself, but it is him. It's just I get it. I think in any cabinet, in anything, there are going to be dissenting views. So there's going to be, a kind of battle of ideologies of what to do in a situation. So I get why they put those things in here, but it has become a cliche because it's done in so many movies. So I understand what you're saying.
That's the one that I can't think of one movie with a president that there isn't a character like that. And it's just, it's the equivalent of a girl tripping over nothing in a horror film. It's like, okay, well, where does it come? Oh, there it is. It's just, But yeah, I mean, that's a nitpick. That's not anything that like ruins the film by any means. But yeah, and then of course, you have the typical thing where it's like they completely get the news wrong. Where it's like, oh, Air Force One crashed. It's still in the effing air, people. It's like,
well, that's just it. But the thing is, I actually liked that because that was a way that this news got out, this rumor that it crashed, which basically forced them to go public with, okay, yes, the president has been, or the Air Force One has been hijacked, which then also serves the plot because when Oldman sees the vice president saying this, he's like, well, wait a minute, that means the president is still somewhere. He's on this plane still.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it served a purpose.
Plot. Yeah. No, I didn't dislike that. But
my only problem, aside from nitpicks like that, it's not even really a problem with the movie. But this is one of those movies you have to seriously suspend disbelief because there's things that happen in this movie. There's no way that that people would get these things on board the plane, would get away with this plane because I mean these people have this training.
They didn't bring anything on the plane.
I know, but I mean, but they're able to get on there and get a hold of these things, and the Secret Service people are trained how to handle these situations. You have people just firing guns inside a plane that if they shoot some holes in the plane, that's not going to end well for anybody. It's the same kind of problem I had with Olympus Has Fallen, which I think is a great movie. I love Olympus Has Fallen, but there's no way somebody takes over the White House that easily. I'm just saying.
Or White House Down.
Yeah, well, White House Down was at least done a little differently, but just the way they took it over in Olympus Has Fallen bothered me. But it's anyway, like I said, nitpicks.
I love that you and I have. This is now the second time now where we've gone with a Harrison Ford film. It's like we thought he was going to be lazy with this, but he actually tries. Because we said the same thing about 6 Days, 7 Nights, where it's like it's sad that we have to.
Well, yeah, 6 Days, 7 Nights. He actually seemed to be having fun. In this one, he really is just doing kind of that gruff Harrison Ford that he fell into for the longest time. But I mean, it worked here. It was what the character was. It
works, yeah, and I think even I don't think they're real name actresses. I think the daughter and the wife did a solid job in the film as well. But yeah, it's one of those things where the cast is decent throughout. There's some hiccups here and there. But I mean, for an action film, and I also like that once again, they didn't make Harrison Ford this epic badass. Like he's one of those he's got a military background, but he makes some stupid mistakes in the film. There is the corny thing where he's trying to cut the fuel. And it's like, oh, it's red, white, and blue. And it's like okay, we get it. But then again, if you're making the plane, and you're putting there, of course you're going to do that. Of course, the red, white, and blue quartz are going to be the right ones. But yeah, Air Force One. Was it on anything? I can't remember.
Netflix.
That's right. It is on Netflix. So if you guys have not seen Harrison Ford as president, this is a decent action film of the 90s. Maybe doesn't age as well as it did back then, but it's still a decent watch throughout. Now the stinker. Brian has been waiting for this for weeks. And when I say weeks, I mean he's brought this up at the end of every episode, going, oh, we're coming up on this. We're coming up on this. And I'm like, I don't care about this movie. He goes, oh, I know you don't care. He goes, but I'm excited. I'm excited for you to watch this movie because you've never seen it before.
Was my excitement justified, Sean?
It was 100% justified. We just did the mid-year review of the show where I ranked 50 Shades of Black as the worst stinker film of the year thus far. Congrats, 50 Shades of Black. You're now number 2 because this movie takes the cake. This might be the worst film I have ever seen. And I'm not talking about terms like The Room, where it's like that, the Room is bad. They're not even, come on. This is a film that should not be bad. It should not have any of these issues. And they just basically said, F it. Let's make this movie. We are talking about probably one of the all-time ranking of worst comic book films ever made. We were talking about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace came out July 24th, 1987. Had a budget of $17 million. Yeah, right. Had a weekend opening of $5.68 million. Number 4, its opening weekend behind RoboCop in its second week. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs re-release in its second week. And Summer School in its first week. And had a finished box office of $15.68 million. Brian, take it away.
Well, okay, I'm going to give you guys the short version of what I told Sean. Before he watched the movie, I'm like, okay, how much background do you want on this movie? Do you want to know or not know going into this? And so I gave him a little background on this movie. So basically, after Superman 3, disappointed a lot of people. And then Christopher Reeve opted then not to do a cameo in Supergirl. So they had a hard time convincing him to do a Superman 4. But I mean, the movies were still profitable. If they'd made a Superman 4, like Superman 3 was still quite profitable. A lot of people went and saw this movie. But Christopher Reeve was like, fine, if you want me to come back and make this movie, I think it was $6 million. I want story, script, and director approval. And basically he said, they also had to green light some other pet project of his called Street Smart. He insisted that the movie have this this nuclear disarmament storyline because he was apparently very politically active at the time about that kind of thing. So they had to try and figure out a way to make the story around that. At one point, he almost was going to direct it, but then they decided he was too inexperienced. But then they settled on this guy, so who knows? But again, everyone involved with the film says it's not all the director's fault. The main problem is the producers. the producers basically, I believe it's some new people that got a hold of it, basically were cheap and greedy, and they're like, we don't want to spend a lot of money on this movie. So they took this movie that was supposed to have a budget of more than double what they ended up with. It's like going to be like $40 million. So at the time was a lot of money in 1987. And they, at the last minute, decided we're going to cut this budget down to $17 million. We are going to fire the effects companies and production design companies, one who's done this work for us for the first 3 movies, and hire these small outfits. I think one of the main special effects ones was based out like Israel. We're going to hire these people to do our special effects, where mostly all they did was reuse the same shots over and over again, and most of them, they're people like paper cutouts going across the screen. You will not believe a man can fly should have been the theme for this one. So anyway, that's the whole background. Is that I told him going into this, I'm like, just know, had no budget. The producers were greedy. They didn't give a shit. Christopher Reeve didn't give that much a shit, clearly, because he didn't even. I mean, Christopher Reeve was never a big guy, but he's even scrawnier in this movie. You're like, what happened to Superman? Is he sick? And then there's a whole sick Superman. We'll get into that. But Sean, let's hear your initial thoughts. See, I had seen this movie before, so I was very excited to hear Sean's thoughts on it.
You already know I'm not a fan of the favorite film of the franchise, because we just did Superman 2 a few weeks back, and I verbally trashed the hell out of that. So for this to be the worst one, and you go, well, if you didn't like Superman 2, I can't wait for you to see Superman 4. And I'm just like, I don't want to watch it.
I was already excited for him to watch this horrible movie, but after he didn't like Superman 2, I'm like, oh, just wait.
Yeah, he's been like salivating, waiting for this day. And I think, no, wait, you left out the most important part. You didn't enjoy watching the film. You enjoyed watching something else.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I'd seen the film before, so I knew how bad it was. And so I knew what to expect from it. So I was watching the movie, but I had the most enjoyment of this film was watching Sean watch this movie. Because he went from just, oh my God, I got to watch this, to what the fuck is this? To, oh my God, this is shit. It was just watching the progress of Sean. It was just madness.
Brian was saying, like, I wish I recorded this.
I wish I recorded his, yes.
Because, granted, the beginning of the movie, first off, it's overly loud, the Superman theme, and like the horror, like you said, the text, like the cast text.
Oh yeah,
it was. And I'm just
like we got a whole computer tried to remake. From the opening credits, you're like, this is a cheaply made movie. Anyway,
yeah, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, all right, fine. It's like, okay, cool. Here's Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent. I'm not impressed. Here's batshit crazy Margot Kidder as the horrible Lois Lane. Okay, cool. Then stuff started to happen. And I like literally was like this, and I went, and progressive. Like, there was times I think I was like this for a solid 10 minutes, just like, what is going on?
It starts to turn that corner from just shitty movie into what the fuck. It kind of starts with
downright insanity.
They bring in John Cryer, and you're like, what is this shitty 80s, like also Valley Guy kind of character? Like, this is just dumb. But then once Nuclear Man shows up.
Is it Nuclear Man or is it Nuclear Man?
It's Nuclear is the way you pronounce it, by the way. Nuclear is not a word. Don't get me started on that. It's not nuclear, people. Nuclear.
Not to mention the horrible soundtrack of this film. It sounded like someone had a what instrument did I say?
No, that was in the deleted scene.
No, there were parts in the regular film that had that too.
A couple parts.
I'm like, what is this soundtrack?
Yeah.
But there are times in this xylophone where it just feels like someone going boop, ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. I'm like, you got paid for this? They paid you money to do a film, and you're over here going boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop. It's like,
well, apparently they paid somebody $25, so.
Well, then, okay, money well spent then. But it's, first off, just the ideology, once again, and I think you would, Christopher Reeve's Superman is Bill Cosby. You quoted that. I'm going to use it. Once again, the amnesia kiss is once again used to an effect in this film. Superman
it's worse than this one. It's worse than okay. So it's Superman 2.
Oh my God! I think that might have been the first time in the movie where I went, "What the fuck is going on here?"
So Superman 2, he ends up accidentally revealing his identity to Lois, and they fall in love, and they have this relationship which apparently lasts about 24 hours. But anyway, you believe, okay, fine, they got together. But at the end of the movie, he's like, you know what? I can't endanger her. I can't be with her. She can't know who I am. He unveils this magic power to kiss her and make her forget everything. okay, it's stupid, but whatever.
It's beyond.
This one, he's basically sitting there. He's sad.
Okay, hold on. Let me paint the picture a little bit better, and I'll let you come back in.
Okay.
So this little kid apparently writes a letter to Superman. Horribly overdubbed kid. Like, that cannot be this kid's voice. Like, that's how bad the voice is of this kid. He writes a letter, Superman, please start the arm race. Superman doesn't get the letter. So basically, in this version, he doesn't get the letter. So they put the headlines, Superman tells kid to drop dead about nuclear race. So Superman's feeling bad about it because he's conflicted because he's not supposed to interfere. Like Brian says, you interfere all the fucking time. But he's worried about that. So Lois comes over because they're going to go to a party and Clark's like, oh, I'm not feeling up to it. And then what does he do? He just grabs Lois and jumps off a building and reveals he's Superman. Continue.
Yeah, so basically there's somebody taking over the Daily Planet and they're trying to turn in like this tabloid sensational journalism, which is why they have the headlines like Superman tells kid.
I guarantee you they're like, we'll do this like Citizen Kane. I bet their mindset was like, this is gonna be like Citizen Kane.
But so Lois comes over and Superman's all sad and so he just decided, I guess I know he just thought, maybe I'll feel better if I get some, I don't know. But also he's just like, for no reason, like he just grabs her, takes off his glasses, jumps off this side, and so reveals himself again, even though he went this whole big thing about, making her forget. He flies around with her. They do their whole thing again. Apparently flies her from New York to San Francisco and back.
And you also can apparently let people go when you're Superman and they will still fly.
Yeah.
Because he is homicidal in this film. First off, he just walks her off a building and just straight up, like, effectively would have murdered her. Then they're flying, and he just lets her go, and his like, no, that's not funny. You just let her go to die.
Takes her to San Francisco and back in, I don't know, maybe let's say he spent an hour flying. She would die from that speed. Gets back, to the building, and then kisses her, so she forgets it all again. So basically, against her will, he just said, for my own benefit, I'm gonna go do this thing because I feel like I want to be with somebody, and then I'm gonna roofie him. What we call it the roofie kiss.
The crypto roofie.
And she'll forget everything, and so I can just do whatever I want. And it's just, and we started theorizing, especially because there's other character in there as well, a new female, Mariel Hemingway, who we figure he's just going to start roofing her too for a booty call every night. And it's Anyway, next. What's next on your list?
Bad. It's very, very bad. Like I said, you got the kid who's horrible as well. You got John Cryer who's just playing Ducky to a mentally challenged degree. You got Gene Hackman, who I'm just like, they must have paid him a lot to come back and do this crap. Because Hackman, you had the they cut.
Hackman's the reason everybody else came back. Apparently, they managed to offer him enough money because everyone else kind of didn't want to come back. Margot Kidder and Perry White.
Margot Kidder looks thrashed in 90% of this film. She looks rough.
But it's like apparently Gene Hackman finally signed on, and so the other people were like, okay, we'll do the movie then. They really shouldn't. They should have stuck with their first instincts.
Margot Kidder looks like she is a 50-year-old alcoholic who's just trying to put on makeup. There's one scene where she's like, Superman, I hope he does. I'm like, are you slushed right now? Like, you're like, I get you're supposed to be emotional, but you're just your lines. And it's, oh gosh, she's fucking horrible. I don't understand the appeal of Margot Kidder. She's batshit crazy in all these films and just a horrendous actress. And Christopher Reeves is not any really better in the film. But it's... So the mindset for Superman in this film is I'm going to collect all the nuclear warheads, which everyone's just okay with, which also doesn't make a lick of sense because they're building them all for a reason, probably to fight Superman in case he ever goes bad. And I'm taking them all. And they're like, okay.
Yeah. So all the countries don't want to disarm because they're like, we can't defend ourselves if we give them nuclear weapons. But then Superman says, I'm going to come take them all. And they're like, hey, Superman's going to disarm us all. It's like, why wouldn't they still be like, no, you're taking our defense?
Yeah, so then he puts all the nuclear warheads in a fishing net, and then what's the sport? It's not shot put, but like
no, I think you're thinking of the hammer throw.
Yeah, the hammer throw. He hammer throws it into the sun. First off, if you throw like 100 nuclear warheads into the sun, granted, the sun's probably going to be okay, but the effects that would have on planet Earth. Congratulations, Superman! You killed planet Earth. Good job. Makes no sense. So then Hackman is trying to create, or Luthor is trying to create a clone of Superman to kill Superman, which I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to do Bizarro. And I thought, okay, they're doing the Bizarro.
Which starts with him going and taking a hair from a museum.
Yeah, so he goes into the Natural Museum, which they have a strand of Superman's hair that can hold a 10,000
pound weight. I think it was
1,000 pound weight. And he just goes up there with garden shears and just cuts the indestructible hair, which I'm like, how the fuck does that work? And then he drops his 1,000 pound weight and it makes no noise, like at all, because it's one of those fake dumbbells. So then we're going to talk about the other thing that didn't show up on the floor, but he effectively puts this on a warhead, because effectively if you put a piece of his hair on a warhead and then Superman throws it into the sun, out pops out Nuclear Man, who already is a grown man with a falc's hair and a full on like outfit.
Yeah, well, he was doing a whole cloning thing, which there's more of it we'll talk about in the deleted scenes. But even in the theatrical version,
not looking through this without talking about it.
But in the version that came out, they took his hair. He does make he manages to clone it or whatever into like this protoplasm. Puts it in some special container along with this little strip of cloth, which even John Cryer's, I'm just going to call him Ducky, I don't remember his name. It's
Lenny. It's Lenny.
Lenny, yeah. Even he says, oh, this is going to fit him, this little thing. And I don't even remember the line. He basically made some throwaway line like it'll grow to him or whatever. But anyway, he puts a little piece of cloth and his protoplasm in there. Yeah, throws that. And apparently the nuclear radiation is what
it's
into Superman.
An embryo, and it grows. And then magically the guy is like shredded with a full suit. I'm like, you don't grow clothing.
Mullet,
you don't grow clothing in a freaking embryo. That's not how that works. But anyway, the guy comes down to Earth. I'm here to destroy Superman. How the fuck do you even know who Superman is at this point? Because you're like a day old. And then he's obviously like Nuclear Man, but his weakness is darkness and cold. Yeah.
So basically, as long as Superman can close the blinds, he could beat him. But he never bothers.
What happens is that he goes towards Luthor like he's gonna hurt him, and he walks out of the position of a sun ray and just powers down like a cell phone, like, whoa. And it's just like, how is this a threat? Like, this guy literally basically just put on sun blocking curtains, and this guy is inconsequential to the film, and it's, oh my god, it's so fucking stupid. And so they fight. Superman. First off, Superman just shows up at Luthor's place like you don't know it's a freaking trap. He's just like, oh, I'll just come in. This isn't Smallville. You don't like Luthor like Clark does in Smallville. And he's like, here's who's going to destroy you, Nuclear Man. And I was like, what? Why is this even happening right now? It's like none of this makes sense. And then all of a sudden, they start fighting, and the fight is just horrendously bad. And the fight ends when Nuclear Man picks up the Empire State Building, or not Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty. That's you said 5 stories big, according to the scale.
The scale was way off in this movie.
The scale was way off, and he just scratches Superman, and that was effectively the end of the fight. And then all of a sudden, Superman gets the flu, and then turns 80. And there's no explanation to it. He just all of a sudden is just super, super
his hair is falling out and everything.
Yeah, he's balding and shit. And then he finds this.
Is it supposed to be radiation sickness? I don't know what they're going for there.
But his power comes from the sun. He is radiation, basically. So it doesn't make sense. And then he hugs this crystal from back home, and then he's fine again. And then they fight again, and the fight is horrible. He literally. He destroys the Great Wall of China, and then somehow another great Superman power. He basically has the ability to manifest stuff out of nowhere and rebuild.
I called it. He manifested the power of claymation, because it wasn't even turning back time. It wasn't telekinesis lifting rocks. It was just things appeared.
Yeah, and then he also can telekinetically lower people who are thrown in the air. There's one dude who gets spun and starts helicoptering upward. But the whole fight seems horrendous.
And then tapping off that tornado. Or the volcano.
That wasn't in the original cut. And so
you're right.
That was the other thing. And so he effectively stops him by getting Nuclear Man trapped in an elevator because he closes the doors and thus there's no sun. So he just powers down, and he takes him to the moon. And as they're fighting on the moon, first off, gravity apparently exists in space because everything falls. Like, the capes are going everywhere. The hair's going everywhere.
Capes are blowing in the wind, that there's no wind in space. People are yelling and talking to each other. There's no sound in space.
Yeah, they pick up a big moon rock, and all the dust particles from the rock fall on him. It's like, they're in space. They would go upward. Like, it would be.
They clearly had no. They clearly had no interest in acting what space is really like. Because I mean, they're flying people into space. He flies. I forgot her name. Meryl Hemingway's character.
To just fast forward to that part, Nuclear Man grabs the other girl and takes her into space, and she is fine. She's not dead. Her eyes haven't popped out. She can't breathe apparently, but apparently she's fine. And they just assume, oh, it's space, but she's good. No, she's dead. And even
she would suffocate, freeze to death, and basically implode.
Even if she wasn't in space and they were still in the atmosphere, the air would be too thin, and she would still freeze and die of suffocation. But the movie's like, I don't care. And so inevitably, the end of the film, Superman, the only way to stop him is to move the moon in front of the sun and create an eclipse. First off, once again, you just destroyed the planet again, guy, because you moved the moon's orbit. Yeah. You moved the moon. That changes the tides and everything. You just destroyed the planet again. And so he beats Nuclear Man, and then they fast forward, like, as fast, like, oh shit, guys, we got 5 minutes left. We got to tie up like 8 storylines. Like, they tie up the newspaper storyline so quick and inconsequential that makes no sense. They go, oh, we're just gonna capture Luthor as he's driving away and drop him back in jail. And then Superman's like,
they don't resolve the Lacey storyline because that was just a deleted scene.
The last time we see her is her falling back to Earth and Superman grabbing her and just like bloop, and then going back up to fight. We never see her again, even though she's a vital part to the film.
She actually has an arc to her character. They said, sure, we're not worried about it.
An arc from her, and then the movie ends with Superman just being like, "I'm here to save the day." The end, and it's so fucking bad. And so Brian goes, you realize this movie was actually 45 minutes longer than this, right? I go, don't you dare try to pull up any of the old footage. He goes, I'm doing it because we're still awake.
It was only half-hour deleted scenes.
I'm like, it was 35 minutes. And it's like, I was like, you're an asshole. And I hate to say it, I'm glad he did. Because, oh my God, the shit that they took out of this film. Like, you thought the original theatrical cut was bad? Holy fucking shit. So there's apparently a clone that he did make prior to Nuclear Man.
Like the first attempt, yeah.
Yeah, which basically is
Neanderthal Man.
Neanderthal or Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Music, like they're playing that the whole time. The dude comes out and
they went full retard. Let's just say that.
He has like a silver pan covering his junk, and he's like, Father. Come to Luthor. It's so horrendously bad. And then he fights Superman, and Superman's like, I don't want to fight you. Where'd you come from? Who are you? And the guy won't listen because he's mentally challenged. So Superman just throws him to a power line until the dude dies. And he comes back as like dust. And then basically like Luthor uses that dust to basically shoot up to space for Nuclear Man. And then there's another arc where Nuclear Man starts a tornado, and we see a farmhouse. And this family comes out of the house with their young child, and they leave their daughter in the second floor. And they're like going down the store. I'm like, what about the daughter? Finally, the daughter screams out, and the parents go, oh my God. I'm like, did you forget you had 2 children? And then in the best moment, the tornado comes through, and the little kid just goes, eee! It just goes flying out.
It was like a Chucky doll flying up in there. And then you see her just spinning in place. Whee!
And she just like this, like totally fine. And then Superman basically saves her. But the scene of her being sucked out the window, it's hilarious. But then also in the deleted scenes, we see the end story of the Lacey. And I'm like, why did they take this out? This makes sense for the film. Like, there's no reason.
The movie wasn't too long. It was only 89 minutes. So.
Yeah, it's like it was a 2-minute scene tops. Like, they should have just let the fuck in. And then there was more to the kid storyline, which actually made more sense to the headline of the Superman saying drop dead. But then Brian explained that, like, so the kid wrote the letter and Superman showed up and they were all in the same clothes. Like, there was
apparently he wrote the letter and Superman received it and came there the same day he wrote it.
Yeah, it's This movie is a fucking mess. It is atrocious. It is one of the worst films that I have ever seen. And then showing me the deleted cut, just like I also was like, I kind of wish they would have left the deleted shit because the movie's already horrendously bad.
Well, here's the thing: is you watch the movie, you're like, this movie's bad. You watch the deleted scenes, and you're like, wow, this stuff's even worse. And I just explained it to Sean. Is what I theorize happened is they made this movie and started taking out all the shitty scenes, and then eventually got to a point where like, we're under 90 minutes. We got to stop cutting. Even though there's still shit in there, we can't cut anymore.
I still don't understand why they pulled out the Lacey scene, because that was actually a good scene. It was not a bad scene. Like, there was no reason to cut that scene. And inevitably, always the last time we saw her was falling back down to Earth. We never saw her again. Like, in this, we actually go like, oh, okay, she and Clark obviously aren't going to be a thing because of Lois, and she's going to move on. Okay, cool. But they just left that out, and I was like, that makes no fucking sense. This movie is bad, guys. It is very, very, very bad. And when I'm saying bad, I'm not saying, oh, it's bad, you should watch it. No, you're going to...
Oh, no, I think you should.
Oh, I
get together with some friends, have some drinks, sit and watch this movie, and you will enjoy the hell out of it, but not for the reasons they want you to.
This is the biggest trash heap I've ever seen. And people want to bash Catwoman. No, Catwoman's bad, but Catwoman is not this. There are some bad comic book movies out there, guys. This takes the fucking cake. From the paper Superman flying away.
The effects are atrocious.
Yeah, the effects are atrocious. The fight scenes are bad. The acting's bad. The story is bad. The editing is bad. The score is bad. There is nothing.
The opening credits are bad. I mean, top to bottom.
The credits are bad. There's no redeeming quality from this film. There's not one thing in this film. Even his suit is bad. You even point out that his cape looks like they forgot to put the yellow on the back. It looks like
they drew an S on paper and taped it to the back of his
like, you know,
cape.
when you see the outline, like, oh, they're supposed to thread it here. You can see that on the back of the cape. There is no redeeming qualities from this film. There's not a
you can't even go, you know what, at least Christopher Reeve is good, because even he's just like, we wearing a bad wig the whole time.
Yes, yeah. This is easily, hands down, top 5 one of the worst films I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. If you guys want to watch it, it's on HBO Max. Have fun, I guess. Feel free to go Mystery Science Theater 3000 with this. And then after you watch the original cut, go find, because it's on YouTube. I found like the and the tornado scene. They're online. You can find those scenes. It'll take you like, at first off, that scene is 9 minutes long. It is 9 minutes, way too long.
That's 10% of the length of this entire movie.
Yeah, the tornado scene is like 2 minutes. Find those scenes and watch it and go, you think this is bad? It could have been worse. That is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. We could keep talking about this film, but we're going to end it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to all of our outlets you see below. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode because, like I said, these are 4 great films and one of the worst films I've ever seen personally. Coming up next, we've got G.I. Joe Origins, Snake Eyes. We got M. Night Shyamalan, Old, which I still can't trust M. Night into thinking that this may or may not be good, even though the cast in it is good. I can't trust M. Night. If you guys don't believe me, watch our review of The Happening. But we'll be back next week, obviously, with another episode of The Weekend Crusaders, where we're going to be talking about another shark movie. That was not planned, guys. We did not plan 3 shark movies in a row, but that's happening. We also have a underrated comedy that is a favorite of Brian and I's. We have a film that I think is a fantastic thriller that no one's allowed to talk about anymore because of a certain person in the film. But you know what? We're going to fucking talk about it because we can see what a film is outside of one actor, and we know that it's a great film. We've got another film that I have never heard of or seen before that Brian is going to make me watch. Here's hoping that it's good, like some things, and not like some other movies he's made me watch. And then we've got a stinker that I profusely hate to my core, but it's not nearly as bad as Superman 4, but it's pretty bad. So figure out what those films are. And until next time, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. Until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.